All right, we ready to rock? Good morning, Ian. How you doing, my friend?
What's up, man? How are you? Just landed from Atlanta where I was at the league meetings. All is well. I'm ready to roll.
All right, so let's go with the hot and heavy one. When does this investigation end? When do we find out what kind of suspension? We've got accusers talking out there, insulted with the contract. We've got gambling lines that want to know if he's going to play, when he's going to play, if there's a suspension. I'm sure the Browns want to know. I'm sure Deshaun Watson wants to know. I'm sure Browns fans want to know. So, inquiring minds want to know, Ian Rapoport, what is happening?
So a couple of things. First of all, I would say the investigation is coming to a close. Basically what's going to happen now, the NFL officials talked to Deshaun Watson last week for several days in Houston. My understanding was he was cooperative. He's been cooperative the whole time, for whatever that's worth, maybe nothing. He answered questions, and now they're going to go back and kind of go through his questions, check on everything, make sure the veracity of everything, go and look at what he said. And then basically at that point, the investigation, unless there's, anything new that arises, the investigation will be closed. So that means the evidence and everything that has been collected will then be turned over to a third party judiciary figure. It used to be Roger Goodell, and then, the player could appeal, and then a third party arbitrator would get installed. It's actually kind of the reverse now. So what it is a third party person jointly appointed by the NFL and the NFLPA makes a decision, and then both sides can appeal. And then, in the end, I believe it's Roger Goodell making the decision. But that's kind of where we are now. I would expect a resolution, well before training camp, hopefully soon, so everybody will know what's going on.
Are you expecting a suspension?
I don't really know, because nobody really knows. I mean, and there's so much on both sides. You have all the accusations, and you mentioned two of the accusers coming out again publicly. I know they've spoken a couple of times publicly, but coming out again on HBO. And then, you have obviously the allegations. You have what Watson and his lawyers have said about him. You have the fact that two grand juries did not indict. You have, some of the material that's come out of his own depositions. You have a lot there. I mean, I don't know which way it's going to go. If it's 6 games is essentially the baseline suspension for something like this, I guess, for, violations of personal conduct policy that are serious in nature. We'll see if that's what it ends up being. But this is going to be one of those things where everyone's sort of going to have an opinion, but no one's actually going to know until it, is officially announced and comes out.
Pro Bowl. Interesting. They're trying to look to see how to revamp it.
Yeah.
And it's the right thing to do. The game is unwatchable. I haven't watched the game myself in years, to be quite honest with you. It's just, and we're going to travel this year if it's there in Vegas again. Our show's going to go out that week because we're going to have the East West Shrine and all that kind of stuff out there. So we're going to be out there quite a bit. But I'm going to go out there more for interviews and information, all that, not really for the game itself. You know what I mean? So Here's what I'm thinking, man. I'm old, man. I was 55. The Superstars
wasn't going to say that, but it is
the Superstars competition when I was a kid, that shit was fun, bro. That might be the way you put these players in that kind of a light, whether it's a track competition, whether it's a lifting competition, whatever the hell it is, man. All kinds of the throwing competition. I remember that thing was really cool. You could do all those kind of things, skills stuff, have some fun with it, put them in a different light at the same time. Hey, let's not play football out in the beach, so we don't lose Robert Edwards, obviously. But, something like what we had with the Superstars, I think that would put them in a different kind of light. And it's still competitive. It's still impressive because you can have that 40-yard race where, we're already talking about it here in Miami where, Mostert and Tyreek and Waddle, all these guys to race each other. They're talking about it. Well, why don't we have it, man? When Darryl Green and company used to do it back when I was young. So let's get back to something fun like that. And Vegas is a great place to kind of hold those kind of events.
Yeah, I mean, I think there is some thought about going to some sort of a skills based something. They do have, kind of a skills challenge. They have different sorts of games. They have dodgeball. So I think that stuff probably stays, and it seems like that stuff's been very popular.
Yeah, man.
My guess now, without really knowing, and I know they haven't decided, is some sort of I think they'd like to have a game, some sort of game. So my guess is a flag football game, like a 7-on-7 style game where you get to see how good the quarterbacks are and see how good the receivers are and, watch the running backs flash some speed and, really appreciate the NFL nature of some of these guys, but also have a game that's actually watchable. My question would be what happens to the linemen? What do they do? Eating competition, chugging, grilling competition. There's a lot that could
those canoes in the pool. I mean, whatever, dude.
Canoes in the pool. You could have them jump on floats and so you can stay on. I mean, there's all sorts of nonsense you could do, and I would watch all of it. But it does seem like the game is probably not going to happen as it has been.
Dude, listen, traditional football fans aren't happy with the game itself. Okay? Yeah. The one that's played on Sunday. Oh, it's been wussified, this, that. We've got all of that going on as it is. So imagine you water it down even more Pro Bowl style. Of course they're not going to want it, man. Yeah. So, yeah, I'm glad. Do something. Have fun with it. Put them in a different light. And I'm like you. I'd eat it all up. I'd watch every bit of all that silliness because that's how you want to see them. You want to see them doing silly stuff that we could do and see how athletes would handle all of that kind of stuff. I think that would be a lot of fun, man. All right. Dude, what happens in San Francisco? Because I find it a weird dynamic because Trey Lance hasn't played enough to convince you whether he's the guy or not. And you could tell me all you want behind the scenes and all that, but it's still not game-like conditions. So you really don't know about the kid. I think, listen, here in Miami, I think we're all cheerleading and hoping that they trade Garoppolo because they own the first-round pick. So we're I think down here in South Florida, we're cheering, going, yeah, trade Garoppolo. Trey Lance is not going to win the same amount of games as Garoppolo. So I'm just wondering, what do you hear in San Francisco? Do they have the guts to trade away Garoppolo? And do they really believe that Trey Lance is ready to take over? Or is there a risk that if he does get in there, there's a big step back for the San Francisco 49ers, who have a Super Bowl caliber-like team?
Yeah, I mean, there is always a risk. And, when you have these young quarterbacks, there's a learning curve. Trey Lance has barely played. So, you make these trades. You trade 2 first-rounders, swap more first-rounders. You go up from 13 to 3 for the next 10 or 15 years, not for 1 year, right? So if they take a step back this year, but, have a better, years 2 to 10, that's okay. It is a risk, though. We've not seen him play, and didn't seem last year like he was really pushing to play at all. They do have the guts to trade Garoppolo. I don't know if they're going to do it, because I don't know where the market's going to be. The only real team they could trade him to as of right now is the Carolina Panthers, who, have been focused on Baker. And Garoppolo is easier because his contract is, let's say, much more flexible because it's not guaranteed. Baker's contract is guaranteed. The Panthers have had discussions about that, but they couldn't come to a resolution. The health is the issue with Garoppolo. I mean, he
always
won't
has been.
throw till June at best. So if that's the case, when do you go, okay, we are comfortable trading for this starting quarterback because we've seen him do enough. We have no concerns about his arm. It's probably not in June. Is that in July? Is it August? What if there's a setback? I mean, there's all sorts of issues here that need to be solved. So yes, they have the guts to trade him, but it's just still a lot of hoops to jump through to make it happen.
I know Aaron Rodgers is here and Garoppolo's down here, so it's a difference. But like Green Bay probably said, yeah, no, we've seen enough of our guy, Jordan. Yeah, we're gonna stay with Aaron. And then on the flip side, you wonder what's gone on behind the scenes that they're comfortable enough with Trey Lance. And the other thing I think also with San Francisco is their philosophy. Because they're so run oriented, they kind of feel you can bring a quarterback maybe along a little slower than you could in an offense that requires the quarterback to be more of a passer in that offense, right? With San Fran, you're expected to run the ball. You're expected to punch people in the mouth a lot.
Yeah, but I mean, they would like to have, they would like to be dynamic both ways. I mean, one thing that Kyle Shanahan likes to do is keep a defense off balance. And, if you have a pinpoint passer, someone who can really stretch the field vertically or horizontally, that would help. There have been times last year, they were eliminated at quarterback in part because of the injuries for Garoppolo, whether it was shoulder or whether it was his thumb. Remember, he had a torn ligament in his thumb, essentially. So there were a lot of issues last year anyway, but it still was Garoppolo leading to the playoffs, making key throws. He had some moments last year where you're like, this guy really is, a franchise guy. And then you had other moments where you're like, I could see why they have Trey Lance. Look, if Jimmy Garoppolo goes to training camp, there is always the possibility he plays better than Trey Lance. And then what do they do? Do they say, you know what? Wanted to trade him. Got to do what's best for our team right now. Got to try to win. Got to not trade him. Deal with it after the year. That's a possibility. And then it gets complicated. Because what if he continues to play well?
Yeah, the good thing for them is that it maybe if this shoulder thing, once it heals, and now you're getting into training camp, some team may have a setback with one quarterback, and then now they're desperate, and that's probably what San Fran can pounce on and take advantage of and say, okay, hey, now we have Jimmy. We can move him to this team. They desperately need a quarterback. And so that also could be the break for them, that once training camp starts, unfortunately, there are injuries and, people do lose players, man, in the process. All right, so the Combine will stay in Indy for 2 more years. That's a good thing, obviously, and I think it's such a smart place because it's centralized. But I get it, my brother. Money is money. Now, is this going to be something that's going to be up for bid year to year after the next 2 years? The other one was, is there any chance that it moves around, but it moves around for a couple of years per city, where it stays somewhere for 2 or 3 years, then it moves again for 2 or 3 years or something, instead of year to year. So there is some kind of continuity for a short window. How will the NFL handle it after the 2 years are done?
I mean, that is a possibility of moving it from city to city, a couple of years in one city, a couple of years in another city, kind of like the draft has done sometimes. I think the NFL would like some stability there. The thing is, like, if it's not in Indy, where's it going to go? It didn't seem like LA. Dallas is a possibility, but maybe and could they handle it medically? Maybe. Roger Goodell talked about now the focus is on making the medical situation better for the players, making it more efficient. So maybe that's something that Dallas could help with. But they're still building, and they're not.
Are they centralized there? Are they centralized there in Dallas?
When they are done building, I think there's going to be, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think there's going to be a hospital next to it that would help. So Dallas would be the place, I think. It's just not there yet. And here's the thing, like, they kind of put it up for bid a little bit, and it maybe didn't generate the interest that some people thought. It's just a strange, different event. I love it, and Indy's.
Well, we don't have enough of a fan crossover. That's the thing, dude. You and I love it because we have access, and we get to do a lot of stuff during that week that fans don't have any access. All these other events, they have to find a way to make it more fan friendly. In other words, I don't know how they do that, because remember, they brought in fans in the stadium, but that was just kind of a weird experiment in a way. So I don't know how you make that more of a fan-friendly event.
Well, and it's so good on TV. I mean, I'm biased because we do it on NFL Network, but it is.
Right.
I think we do a great job.
Yeah,
so good on TV that like there is something to be said for like just great to watch on TV. I mean, I'm there live and I still end up watching a lot of it on TV because it's so great. So I don't know. I think 2 years, let Dallas do some building, figure it out. I'm happy it's back in Indy. I think that's a good thing for everyone.
Yeah, the good thing about the Dallas one, it is kind of centralized still to a certain extent, and better weather. So
Probably
that's
better weather. Yes.
Yeah, better weather.
Walking around from restaurant to restaurant, better weather.
Yeah, that's the only thing. But man, Indy does a great job. Always has. I've gone for 20 years, and man, they have always done a fantastic job. I'm finally looking forward to going back, bro. I haven't been the last couple of years because of COVID. So we're gonna.
You haven't missed anything. It's still the same, but it's great.
Yeah. The show will hit the road this year. Now we'll get back on track since we're locked and loaded now. All right, one more thing before I let you go. I got to ask you, Dolphins still have a bunch of money under the cap still. They still have some flexibility. JC Tretter's still hanging out, enjoying his vacation. So what do we hear? What do we know? Is there any other names that are being tied to the Dolphins? Because we just got the Melvin Ingram edition. I almost feel like Chris does a terrific job, and I'm talking about Greer, of trying to find things at his price, not necessarily in a hurry to get to everybody else's price.
Yeah, and this is a time when you can be patient. I haven't heard, many names connected to the Dolphins, and I think there's some conversations going on, but I think teams would like to see their rookies. They'd like to see what they have. They'd like to see their free agents. This is the time to do it. What sometimes happens before minicamp is, you say like, all right, well, this guy's does not look like he's ready. This, third rounder or whatever who we drafted doesn't look like he's ready. So we got to go get a veteran, spend $2 million, whatever it is. So I think that evaluation process is happening now. I haven't sensed anything imminent. Maybe we get one more signing, something like that before the summer's out. But I think this is the time to evaluate what you got in your roster. And then, maybe if it gets real dire in training camp, then you see some veteran moves.
Follow them on Rap Sheet. By the way, folks, don't forget the first 40 Big O listeners right now, 1-800-ALARM-ME. You'll get a free doorbell camera. 1-800-ALARM-ME. What are you working on there in the NFL Network so folks can check you out, my man?
Still kind of recapping the meetings from the last couple of days, and we'll see if we get a little bit of news over the next couple of days, something to keep us interested. There's always some things lurking.
Brewing, huh? Something's brewing.
Always some things brewing. We'll see what we can come up with.
Follow him on Twitter at Rap Sheet, like I and many others do, and you can catch him every week here with our Slomin's look around the NFL. Ian, as always, thank you, my friend. Appreciate you. We'll catch up next week.
Sounds good, man. Look forward to it.
We got it. There you go. The great Ian Rapoport, kind enough to join us here every single week exclusively right here on our program. Can't catch him anywhere else in South Florida. That's for damn sure. And then you get him everywhere else in the world. So there you go. Appreciate that. That is our look around the NFL.